The email notification popped up at 3:47 a.m., but I was already awake, staring at the ceiling of the hotel room I'd been living in for the past week. Board resolution, effective immediately. My hands trembled as I opened it. The company I'd built from nothing, the tech firm I'd coded line by line in our garage while pregnant with our first child, had just voted me out. All 9 board members had signed, including my husband Marcus, who held the deciding vote as CEO, a position I'd given him 3 years ago when I'd stepped back to focus on product development. The last line made my blood run cold. Your keycard access has been revoked. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings between 9:10 a.m. today only. I didn't need to collect my belongings. Marcus had already done that for me, apparently. Last Tuesday, when he'd suggested I take a mental health break, after I'd questioned some suspicious financial movements in our quarterly reports. When I'd returned home that evening, the locks had been changed. My clothes were in boxes on the lawn. The joint bank accounts were frozen, pending what his lawyer called a necessary legal separation to protect company assets. 7 years of marriage, 12 years building that company, and he'd orchestrated it all while sleeping next to me, whispering that he loved me, playing the devoted husband at every company event while secretly meeting with board members behind my back, convincing them I was too emotional to lead, that my erratic behavior was damaging the company's reputation. The erratic behavior he referred to? Asking why $2 million had been moved to an offshore account. Questioning why my own development team had been reassigned without my knowledge. Noticing that every major decision I made was somehow reversed within days, but Marcus didn't know about the USB drive hidden in my jewelry box, the one he'd overlooked when he'd packed my things so carefully. The one with every email, every backdoor deal, every piece of evidence of his embezzlement. He didn't know that 3 months ago, when I'd first grown suspicious, I'd started recording our conversations. He didn't know that his mistress, Sarah, our CFO, the woman I'd mentored who smiled at me every morning, had been careless with her calendar, scheduling their hotel meetings as vendor consultations that I could easily verify never happened. Most importantly, Marcus didn't know about my grandmother. Grace Chen was a name that commanded respect in Silicon Valley, though most people didn't know she was my grandmother. We had different last names. I'd taken my mother's maiden name professionally, then Marcus's when we married. She'd built her first company in the 1980s when women in tech were even rarer than they are now. She'd sold it for $500 million and had been quietly investing ever since, maintaining her privacy while accumulating a portfolio worth billions. We'd been estranged for 5 years after a fight about Marcus. She'd seen through him immediately, called him a parasite in a Paxton suit at our engagement party. I'd been young, in love, and stupid enough to choose him over her. Too proud to admit she was right when the signs started appearing. Too ashamed to reach out when I finally understood. But 3 months ago, when I'd first discovered the offshore accounts, I'd swallowed my pride and called her. I wondered when you'd finally see it, she'd said, her voice carrying no judgment, only tired acceptance. Men like Marcus always reveal themselves eventually. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't know, I'd whispered, crying in my car in the company parking lot. He's turned everyone against me. The board thinks I'm paranoid. My own team barely looks at me anymore. Then you stop playing by his rules, she'd said simply. You start playing by mine. The plan we'd developed over the next 3 months was elegant in its simplicity. Grandmother had been watching my company, Novatech, for years, proud despite our estrangement. She knew its real value wasn't the inflated numbers Marcus showed investors, but the patents I held personally. 12 core patents that I'd filed before the company's incorporation, that I'd licensed to Novatech under an agreement that required my personal consent for any transfer or sale. Marcus, in his arrogance and haste to push me out, had overlooked this detail, as had, apparently, the company's legal team, probably because Marcus had replaced our original lawyers with his golf buddies 6 months ago. The morning after the board email, instead of showing up to collect my belongings like a defeated ex-wife, I was sitting in my grandmother's office in Palo Alto. The view stretched across the bay, and for the first time in months, I could breathe. They're already celebrating, she said, sliding a tablet across her mahogany desk. The screen showed Marcus's Instagram, a champagne toast with a board, Sarah's hand conspicuously on his shoulder. The caption read, "Exciting new chapter for Novatech. Sometimes change is necessary for growth. Hash new beginnings, hash tech leadership." The comments were full of congratulations, though I noticed several former employees had posted cryptic responses. "Interesting timing," one wrote. "Hope the real talent doesn't walk out the door," posted another. "Your husband is about to learn what happens when you steal from a Chen woman," grandmother said, her eyes sharp behind designer glasses. "Are you ready?" I thought about the nights I'd spent coding while Marcus played video games, telling me I was too obsessed with work. The times I'd pitched to investors while 8 months pregnant. Marcus taking credit for the vision while I handled the technical details. The way he'd slowly, systematically isolated me from my own creation, like a parasite killing its host. I'm ready. The next 6 months were a masterclass in strategic warfare, though from the outside it looked like a phoenix rising from ashes. First, I incorporated my new company, NovaCore Technologies. The name was deliberate, close enough to Novatech to create confusion, different enough to be legally distinct. Within a week, I'd filed papers revoking Novatech's license to use my patents, citing breach of contract, specifically the clause requiring my direct involvement in any major strategic decisions. My removal from the board qualified. Marcus's first response was predictable. Lawyers. Cease and desist letters. Threats of lawsuits for corporate sabotage. But my grandmother's legal team was better, and more importantly, they were right. The contracts were airtight. I owned those patents personally, and without them, Novatech's core products were effectively illegal to sell. While Marcus scrambled to find workarounds, trying to reverse engineer my own code, which would take years, I was building. The USB drive didn't just contain evidence of his embezzlement. It held something far more valuable. My original development notebooks. 5 years of innovations I'd never implemented at Novatech because Marcus always said we needed to focus on profit over innovation. My grandmother's funding was unlimited, but I barely needed it. The moment word got out that I was recruiting, my inbox exploded. Every engineer Marcus had marginalized, every developer he'd overlooked for promotion, every designer whose ideas he'd stolen, they all wanted in. Within a month, I had 40 of Novatech's best people, including Jin, my original co-developer who Marcus had demoted to customer service optimization when he'd questioned the offshore accounts. "He actually thought we'd stay," Jin laughed during our first team meeting, held in a sleek new office space 3 blocks from Novatech's headquarters. "Like we were there for him and not you." The technology we built over those 6 months was everything Novatech should have been. The user interface Jin had designed, but Marcus had called too complex for average users, became our signature feature. The AI integration I'd wanted to implement, but Marcus had vetoed as too expensive, became our core selling point. The accessibility features Marcus had cut to streamline costs became our market differentiator. But the real masterstroke was the compatibility. NovaCore's products were designed to integrate seamlessly with existing Novatech systems. Any company using Novatech could switch to NovaCore without losing a single day of productivity. Better yet, we offered a migration service that transferred all data, all customizations, all user preferences with one click. Marcus tried to block us, of course. Patent infringement suits that went nowhere because I owned the patents. Corporate espionage accusations that fell apart when investigators found no evidence. He even tried to claim I'd violated my non-compete agreement, until my lawyers pointed out that he'd never had me sign one. Another oversight in his rush to push me out. 6 months after my expulsion from Novatech, NovaCore went public. The IPO was priced at $45 per share. By noon, it was trading at $120. By market close, we had a valuation of $8.7 billion. Novatech, meanwhile, had lost 60% of its value as clients jumped ship, unable to use products that might face patent litigation, unwilling to work with a company whose own founder had abandoned it under suspicious circumstances. The financial press had a field day. The revenge IPO, Forbes called it. How to steal a company back, read the Wall Street Journal headline. But my favorite was from TechCrunch. Marcus Palmer learns the hard way. Don't piss off the person who holds the patents. But I wasn't done. The hostile takeover began exactly 1 year after my expulsion, orchestrated with the precision of a Swiss watch. Novatech was vulnerable. The stock had plummeted to $12 per share from its high of $67. They'd lost 3 major contracts when Novacor underbid them. Easy to do when you don't have to pay licensing fees for patents. The board was in chaos. 2 members had already resigned after the embezzlement investigation I'd triggered with an anonymous tip to the SEC finally bore fruit. My grandmother and I had been quietly buying shares through shell companies for months. Every dip we bought, every panic sell we absorbed. When employees exercised their options to leave for Novacor, we purchased those too. By the time we made our move, we controlled 38% of Novatech. The board meeting where we announced our takeover bid was scheduled for a Tuesday. Marcus had no idea I'd be there. Shareholders weren't typically allowed in closed board sessions. But I wasn't attending as a shareholder. I walked into that familiar boardroom wearing the same blazer I'd worn to my first investor pitch, though now it was paired with Louboutins instead of the flats I'd worn when I was too broke to afford good shoes. Marcus's face went white when he saw me. "What are you doing here?" he stammered, Sarah grabbing his arm. "I'm here as the representative of Novacor Technologies," I said calmly, taking my old seat at the table. "We're offering to acquire Novatech for $15 per share. That's a 25% premium over current market value." "This is ridiculous," Marcus sputtered. The board would never." "Actually," interrupted James Morrison, the lead independent director, "given our fiduciary duty to shareholders, we're obligated to consider any serious offer. And Miss Chen's offer is quite serious." I slid the folder across the table. Inside was everything: the financial backing from my grandmother's consortium, the support of 3 major institutional investors, and most damning, letters of intent from 70% of Novatech's remaining clients stating they would not renew their contracts unless the company was under stable, innovative leadership. "You orchestrated this," Marcus accused, his face red. "You've been planning this all along." "No," I said quietly. "I was planning to build something great with you. You're the one who decided to steal it. I'm just taking back what was mine." The vote was scheduled for the following month. Marcus spent those weeks desperately trying to find a white knight, another buyer who could outbid us. He called in every favor, leveraged every connection, but who wanted to buy a company hemorrhaging talent and clients, facing SEC investigations, with its core technology tied up in patent disputes? He tried to paint me as vindictive in the press, the bitter ex-wife destroying a company out of spite. But the numbers told a different story. Novacor was thriving. Our clients were happy. Our innovation pipeline was strong. Meanwhile, Novatech hadn't released a significant update in 8 months. The night before the vote, Marcus called me. It was 2 a.m., and his voice was slurred. Drunk, desperate, or both. "Please," he said. "Amanda, please. We can work this out. We can run it together like we always planned." "We never planned that," I said. "I planned it. You just took it." "I gave you everything," he spat, the false remorse crumbling. "I made you successful. Without me, you'd still be some nobody developer." "Without you," I interrupted, "I'd have built this company right the first time." The shareholder vote was a landslide, 87% in favor of the acquisition. The integration was swift and surgical. I kept the good people, the ones who'd been loyal to the company, not to Marcus. The others were offered generous severance packages that required ironclad, non-disclosure agreements. Sarah was the first to go, escorted out by security while Marcus watched, powerless to stop it. Marcus himself was the last to leave. As part of the acquisition agreement, he had to sell his shares, all of them. The payout was substantial, nearly $50 million, but it came with conditions: a lifetime non-compete in the tech industry, a complete social media blackout regarding the company, and, most satisfyingly, a requirement that he attend one final all-hands meeting where I would address the newly merged company. He sat in the back row, shoulders hunched, as I stood at the podium where he'd once announced my mental health break to the whole company. "Innovation requires trust," I began, looking directly at him. "Trust between partners, between leadership and employees, between a company and its clients. That trust was broken. Today, we begin rebuilding it. The applause was thunderous. Marcus left before it ended. The new Novatech. I kept the name, both for brand recognition and because I'd be damned if I let him take that from me too, became the success I'd always envisioned. We went from a valuation of $500 million under Marcus's leadership to $3 billion within 18 months of the acquisition. The patents I'd reclaimed became the foundation for products that revolutionized the industry. The team that had followed me to NovaCore and back became the core of an innovation lab that produced 3 breakthrough technologies in our first year alone. Jin became my CTO. My grandmother joined the board as chairman emeritus. The office where Marcus had locked me out became a meditation room for employees. I thought that was poetic justice. The embezzlement charges finally stuck. Marcus was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, though he'd probably serve 18 months with good behavior. Sarah fled to Dubai, where she posts inspirational quotes about rising above adversity on her Instagram. The board members who'd voted me out quietly resigned from their other positions as word spread about their catastrophic judgment. I bought a new house in Los Altos Hills with a view of the valley where I'd built my first company and lost it and built it again. My children stay with me full-time now. The custody battle was brief once Marcus's legal troubles began. They're learning to code, though I don't push. If they want to build something someday, they will, and if someone tries to steal it from them, well, they'll know what to do. My grandmother and I have dinner every Sunday now. Last week, she raised her wine glass and said, "You know, I've destroyed several men who underestimated me over the years, but I've never seen it done with quite so much style." "I learned from the best," I told her. "No," she smiled. "You learned from experience. That's much more valuable." Sometimes I think about that night in the hotel room, reading that email, feeling like my world was ending. I wish I could tell that version of myself what was coming. Not the success, that would ruin the surprise. But I'd tell her that the crushing weight in her chest wasn't her life ending. It was her life beginning. The real one. The one where she didn't need anyone's permission or approval or stolen credit to build something extraordinary. Marcus sent me a letter last month from prison. An apology, probably coached by his lawyer or therapist. He said he understood now what he'd lost, that his greed had cost him everything meaningful. He asked if I could ever forgive him. I didn't respond, not out of cruelty, but because forgiveness implies he still matters to my story. He doesn't. He was a bug in the code, and I debugged him. The program runs perfectly now. The last time I saw him in person was at the federal courthouse, the day of his sentencing. He looked smaller somehow, deflated, like a suit that had lost its filling. As they led him away, he turned back to look at me. His lips moved, saying something I couldn't hear over the distance. Said Sarah would later tell a mutual acquaintance that he'd said, "I'm sorry." But Jin, who was sitting closer, swears he said, "You win." The truth is, it doesn't matter what he said because this was never about winning or losing. It was about building something that mattered, something that helped people, something that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Marcus thought it was about money and power and control. That's why he lost. He was playing checkers while I was building a whole new board. The new Novatech headquarters has a wall of patents in the lobby, all of them in my name. Visitors often ask about them, and our receptionists are trained to say, "Those belong to our founder and CEO, Amanda Chen Palmer." I kept his last name professionally, not out of sentiment, but as a reminder. Every email I send, every document I sign, every press release that goes out with my name, it all carries that hyphen like a battle scar. Some people say success is the best revenge. They're wrong. Success is just success. Revenge is taking back what's yours and making it better than the thief could ever imagine. It's watching them realize too late that they didn't steal your success. They freed you to achieve it. The day we reached a $5 billion valuation, I got a call from a reporter asking how it felt to have bounced back from my divorce and professional setback. "I didn't bounce back," I told her. "I built forward." She asked what advice I'd give to other women facing similar betrayals in business or marriage. "Document everything," I said. "Trust your instincts, and never, ever give away your patents." But the real advice, the one I didn't share, was simpler. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When they try to steal from you, let them think they've succeeded. then build something so magnificent that their theft becomes irrelevant, a footnote in your much larger story. Marcus stole my company. He thought he was taking my life's work. What he actually did was clear the path for me to build something infinitely better. He thought he was the main character in this story, the brilliant CEO who outsmarted his technical co-founder wife. But he was just a catalyst, a chemical reaction that burned away the impurities and left something stronger. My grandmother once told me that in Chinese mythology, the phoenix doesn't just rise from ashes, it sets itself on fire first, choosing its own destruction to enable its rebirth. Marcus thought he burned my life down. He didn't realize I'd already lit the match. The new Novatech is everything the old one should have been. We have the best parental leave policy in tech, 18 months, fully paid, with guaranteed position protection. We have an on-site childcare center that I personally designed, remembering all those nights trying to code with a baby on my lap because Marcus said childcare was my responsibility. We have a legal team that reviews every employee's contract to ensure their innovations are protected. And we have a culture where questioning financial decisions isn't called erratic behavior, it's called good governance. Last week, we announced a partnership with my grandmother's investment firm to create a $100 million fund for women-led startups. The press release went viral, not because of the amount, but because of the name, the Second Chance Fund. It's for founders who've been pushed out, overlooked, or had their ideas stolen. Women who need not just funding, but protection, legal support, and mentorship from those who've survived similar battles. The first recipient was a young woman named Priya, whose co-founder, her boyfriend, had locked her out of their food delivery startup after she'd built the entire algorithm. Sound familiar? We not only funded her new venture, but helped her reclaim her code through a patent dispute nearly identical to mine. She's already profitable, and her ex is still trying to figure out why his app keeps crashing. Marcus won't be eligible for parole for another 6 months, but I've already heard through the legal grapevine that he's planning to write a book about his fall from grace. His working title is Hostile: How I Lost Everything to Corporate Revenge. I'm sure he'll paint himself as the victim, the brilliant entrepreneur brought down by a vindictive ex-wife with powerful connections. Let him. Every entrepreneur in Silicon Valley knows the real story. They saw the patents. They watched the talent exodus. They witnessed a company built on stolen ideas crumble, while the real innovation flourished elsewhere. His book will be fiction shelved in the business section, while Harvard Business School has already requested permission to use the Novatech acquisition as a case study in ethical leadership and strategic recovery. The irony that Marcus will never appreciate is that if he'd just been a decent partner, in business and in marriage, we could have built Novatech together into something extraordinary. His name could have been on those patents. He could have been remembered as a visionary CEO who supported innovation instead of stealing it. We could have been a power couple building an empire side by side. Instead, he's federal inmate hash 47,892, and I'm running one of the fastest growing tech companies in the world. My children don't know the full story yet. They're too young to understand hostile takeovers and patent law. But they know mommy's company makes technology that helps people, and that their father made some bad choices. That means he can't live with us anymore. Someday, when they're older, I'll tell them the whole truth. Not to poison them against their father, Marcus did that himself, but to teach them that their ideas have value, their work has worth, and no one, no matter how much you love them, has the right to steal your dreams. For now, though, we focus on building. My daughter Emily is 7 and has already created her first app, a virtual pet that reminds you to drink water. My son Lucas is 5 and prefers painting to programming, which is perfect. Innovation isn't just about code. It's about seeing the world differently and having the courage to create something new. Every morning, I walk through the Novatech lobby, past those framed patents, past the meditation room that was once Marcus's office, past the pictures of our team at various milestones. There's one photo I particularly love. It's from our first NovaCore meeting, all 40 of us crammed into a conference room meant for 12. Laptops balanced on our knees, everyone grinning despite the chaos. That was the moment I knew we'd win. Not because we had the best technology or the most funding, but because we had something Marcus never understood: genuine collaboration. He used to say that business was war, that you had to destroy the competition to succeed. But business isn't war, it's architecture. You build something strong enough to support not just your own vision, but the dreams of everyone who believes in it. Marcus tried to build his success on a foundation of betrayal and lies. I built mine on innovation and integrity. Guess which one is still standing? The anniversary of my expulsion from Novatech is coming up. 3 years this Tuesday. HR suggested we make it a company holiday, calling it Founders Day or something similar. I declined. That day isn't worth celebrating. It's the days that came after, the building, the fighting, the winning, that matter. But I do mark the occasion privately. Every year on that date, I donate my entire day's salary to a women's shelter in San Francisco. It's the same shelter where I spent 3 nights after Marcus changed the locks, too proud to call my grandmother, too shocked to process what was happening. The director doesn't know I'm their anonymous donor, but she sends the same thank you letter to Guardian Angel every year, updating me on how many women they've helped escape abusive situations and rebuild their lives. This year's letter included a story about a woman whose husband had stolen her successful catering business through forged documents. The shelter's legal aid team helped her prove the forgery, reclaim her recipes and client list, and start over. She now runs 3 restaurants and employs 15 other women from the shelter. The director called it a beautiful example of justice served cold. I laughed at that. Justice isn't a dish best served cold. It's served at exactly the right temperature, seasoned with evidence, and garnished with the shocked expression on your betrayer's face when they realize they've lost everything they stole and more. The truth about hostile takeovers is that they're not really hostile, they're corrective. When someone builds a castle on stolen land, you don't negotiate for a guest room. You prove the deed is fraudulent and reclaim every stone. Marcus thought he was stealing a company. He was actually teaching me how to take one. And I was an excellent student. These days, I rarely think about him. Running a multi-billion-dollar company doesn't leave much time for dwelling on the past. But occasionally, something will trigger a memory. The scent of his cologne in an elevator, a glimpse of someone who walks like him, the word erratic in a business article. And I'll remember that feeling of reading his betrayal in that sterile hotel room, thinking my life was over. If I could time travel, I wouldn't change anything. Not the marriage, not the betrayal, not even the pain. Because every wound he inflicted taught me where my armor was weak. Every lie he told showed me how to recognize truth. Every attempt to diminish me revealed my actual strength. Marcus thought he was breaking me. He was forging me. The last board meeting of the quarter is tomorrow. We'll review the numbers. Revenue up 340%. User base doubled. 3 new patents filed. We'll discuss the expansion into European markets, the AI integration that's 2 years ahead of any competitor, the acquisition offers we've received and rejected from companies that once wouldn't return my calls. And at the end, when we vote on strategic initiatives, every single board member will look to me for guidance. Not because I demanded it or manipulated them into it, but because I earned it. Marcus's old seat at the board table remains empty. Not out of sentiment or symbolism, but because we haven't found anyone worthy of filling it yet. Sometimes new board members ask about it, and I tell them the truth. It belonged to someone who confused theft with leadership, who thought power could be stolen rather than earned. We keep it empty as a reminder that no seat at our table is guaranteed. It must be continuously deserved. My assistant knocked on my door yesterday with a peculiar request. A documentary filmmaker wants to tell the story of the Novatech takeover. She's won 2 Emmys and has backing from Netflix. She's particularly interested in what she calls the mythology of the wronged woman in tech and how my story subverts the typical narrative. I told her I'd think about it, but I already know my answer. This story isn't mythology. It's not a fairy tale where the princess needs saving or a cautionary tale about trusting the wrong prince. It's a business story, plain and simple. Someone stole something. The owner took it back. The end. Except it's not the end, is it? It's barely the middle. Because tomorrow we announce Novatech's biggest innovation yet, a quantum processing chip that makes our current technology look like an abacus. It's the project I started designing in my head during those long nights in the hotel when insomnia and fury became the parents of innovation. The patent application is 247 pages long, and every single page has my name on it, just mine. The market analysts are predicting it will double our valuation overnight. The competition is scrambling to understand how we made a 5-year leap in 6 months. Tech journalists are calling it the innovation of the decade. I call it Tuesday. Because when you've already done the impossible, when you've taken back what was stolen, rebuilt what was destroyed, and risen from ashes someone else set on fire, revolutionizing an industry is just another day at the office. Marcus will hear about it, of course. News travels fast in federal prison, especially tech news that makes the front page of every major publication. I wonder if he'll recognize the core architecture. It's based on an idea I had on our honeymoon, watching the sunset in Santorini, thinking about parallel processing and quantum entanglement while he played poker with strangers at the resort. I told him about it that night, excited, drawing diagrams on cocktail napkins. He laughed, called it too theoretical and impossibly expensive to develop. Then he ordered another drink and forgot about it. I never forgot. I never forget anything. The announcement goes live in 18 hours. The press release is ready, the demo is flawless, and the patents are airtight. This time tomorrow, Novatech won't just be a successful company that survived a hostile takeover. It will be the company that changed everything. And somewhere in a federal cell, Marcus will finally understand the true cost of his betrayal. Not the money he lost or the freedom he sacrificed, but the future he threw away, the partnership he destroyed, the empire we could have built together if he'd just been capable of seeing me as an equal instead of an asset to be exploited. His loss, my gain, the market's reward. That's the thing about hostile takeovers. They're only hostile if you're on the wrong side of them. From where I'm sitting, in the office I built, running the company I created, surrounded by people who respect innovation over ego, it doesn't feel hostile at all. It feels like justice, like it feels like home. It feels like everything Marcus tried to steal from me returned with compound interest. The sun is setting over Silicon Valley now, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber. The same sunset I watched alone 3 years ago, convinced I'd lost everything. Now I watch it from a different angle, through windows that overlook an empire built on reclaimed dreams and patented revenge. Tomorrow, the world will see what I've built from the ashes of Marcus's betrayal. But tonight, I raise a glass of champagne, the good stuff, the kind Marcus used to buy with embezzled funds, and toast to every woman who's been underestimated, overlooked, or overthrown by someone who mistook her kindness for weakness. Your takeover is coming, and when it does, it won't be hostile and it will be inevitable.